All right, we are back. Dynasty Trades in 5. I'm Clay.
Still Shane.
I am Scott, and we are going to fast forward to the future, 2023.
We are. So yeah, in all these shows, we talk about, this player or a 23 first. And it's always, the 23 first. Everyone's obsessed with them. We've been on a mission to collect them. But let's talk about this class. Why are we obsessed with it? What's going to happen with the value of them? What is the value of them? Because we're talking about giving away, 2022 106s and 107s for a random 23 first. So let's just get into it. Hit the subscribe if you like this channel. We got more good stuff coming. Scott, you start.
Well, everybody knows I've been the proponent of, I'm the one that's usually going 23 first, 23 first. Do whatever you can to maneuver your assets around to get 23 first. So it's been interesting because, we're kind of to the point where now it's, 14, 15 months away until your 2023 rookie draft. So you're thinking like, oh, we have another draft season coming up. But I think everyone's kind of fast forward in a year to 2023. Now, the reason why we're so high on the picks is a couple of reasons. It's not just the class. I think I've said it many times on this channel that a rookie class, in terms of how we perceive it, at least this has been this way in the past. Maybe it's changing. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. But quarterbacks and running backs are typically what is going to drive the strength of a class. Today, we see every draft class has receivers. Some draft classes have elite receivers. Some draft classes have a ton of receivers. Like this year, probably going to be 12, 13 receivers that are going to go in like dynasty relevant, first 75 picks or so. So you're going to get a deep class. But this year, you may not get a receiver that really deserves to be a top 12 receiver in dynasty for a couple years. You don't know. But I think next year's class is going to be very similar to 2017, 2020, 2023. It seems like it happens every 3 years where we see this influx of running back talent. I mean, I've seen people talk about 3 or 4 first round running backs, which would almost be unheard of, but we've seen running backs go in the first round in the past. When teams think they're good enough and they have a need, then they follow with the draft pick. So if we end up getting, let's just call it similar to 2020, where we end up with like, you know, 6 running backs or 7 running backs that go in the first 2 rounds. We're just like that. And that is an absolute slam dunk in terms of the value of the picks. Now, how good are the players? We happen to have a super deep class of Devi talent too. And I don't think we even know all the names. There's probably 9 or 10 names that are going to probably fill those 5 or 6 spots. There's going to be some names that are going to fall out and names that jump in. But I think it comes down to, you're going to have probably 3 or 4 quarterbacks go in the first round, 2 that could go in the top 5, top 10, a bunch of running backs that are going to go in the first 2 rounds. We haven't even talked about the receivers. We haven't even talked about, we may have maybe not another Kyle Pitts, but close, at least another Hawkinson or Fant with Michael Mayer. So that's just an extra slot. So the idea of the 23 first isn't, I'm going to fill this need, I'm going to help this specific team in this way. I'm going to have a lot of options to choose from. And hopefully there's somebody in your league that really is going to need to build their team a certain way. So it's a lot of leverage. That's why I've talked about wanting to get a lot of picks. I don't want just one. I want 3. I want to be able to like kind of play the board and really build my team. This is going to be a team building draft. So I know I've been long-winded. I'll let Shane give his thoughts, but it's not so much about the individual players. It's that we know everyone else is going to want these picks.
Oh, dude.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I was just as Scott's talking, I just decided to go look up NFL mock draft database. Just gets a bunch of consensus or gets a bunch of mock drafts together, gives you a consensus on some players. It's got 4 running backs in the first round. I don't even know the last time that happened. Definitely not this decade. Wait, that's only a year. I don't think it was last decade either. I don't remember the last time 4 running backs went in the first round. It has 8 wide receivers in the first 2 rounds. And then 4 quarterbacks in the first 2 rounds. There's a reason that we've talked about this class. Like it goes 2 rounds deep before you're even like, I don't know who else I'm going to pick. Like, and I'm not a deep Devi guy, but you can get through 24 picks before you're like, I don't know what to do here. Like today, a full year before the draft. And obviously, like Scott said, some of the names are going to change. Some people are going to jump up. There's time for guys to rehab their stock, like Spencer Rattler. It's good all around. I think it's super deep at wide receiver. Running back, I think it's a little heavier up top. I don't know that it's as deep as everyone thinks it is. It's very heavy at top though. very heavy. We were talking before we started recording, like, what would you give up right now for the 101? I'm thinking there's how many would you say 85% of players in fantasy you would give up right now for the 101 in 2023?
I think more than that. I think that we could name on one hand the players you wouldn't give up for the 101. If it was guaranteed 101, I think you find a lot of people that'd be willing to give pretty much any of the non-elite, like top 4 or 5 non-skill players. Quarterbacks is different just because a lot of times that's roster construction dependent. But yeah, like Chase Jefferson, Jonathan Taylor, maybe Swift, maybe Javonte, like that's it. I think he pretty much would give up every other player. If it's a locked-in guaranteed 101, it's 2020 with a Fant or Hawkinson or better level tight end prospect thrown in. Now, people are going to go, oh, there's no Herbert or Burrow in this class. Maybe there doesn't end up being those guys, but if you just look at the prototype of the draft and the placeholders, remember what it was like in 2020. You wanted those picks. Even though there's a lot of receivers in 2020 that disappointed, you still wanted them. You still wanted that 203 to get Laviska Shenault or Brandon Ayuk. Like that's where you were able to get the receivers, and you just felt like that was a consolation. Nobody was letting you trade up to take Dobbins or Akers. Like you had to pay through the roof to get up into that top 7, 8 picks before the running backs went off the board. And I think this is going to be similar. And with the receivers, you're going to get a lot of good profile receivers. There was 7 receivers in 2023 that are eligible that already hit the freshman production thresholds that you would look for. Now, are those going to be the 7 guys that get the draft capital? Who knows? But there's going to be 3 or 4 of them that are almost guaranteed. You already mentioned Boutte, Jackson Smith-Njigba. There's a couple others that had a little bit of a down sophomore year, but you have the profile receivers. Now, do they end up being any better than this year? Who knows? But I mean, that's just a bonus in the class. So it's the depth. Exactly.
In preparation for these, 2023 picks, like let's say you've got 5 of them, right? What would you be doing today to make yourself, primed and ready to rock and roll by the time you're on the clock and you're drafting, Bigsby and Bijan and all these freaking monsters? So you can start smashing people in the face with a sledgehammer, like Shane would say.
I mean, I think in theory, if you can do this, you want to kind of build your team almost like a complete punt at running back in the first year. And if you're in a startup draft, you should be able to get, especially if you're doing a startup now or in the next month, you should be able to take some shots on decent profiles at decent prices. Like you should be able to buy the Melvin Gordons, the James Connors, the Sony Michels. Like you can probably create a team where obviously you want to trade back and try to accumulate extra 2023 firsts, which we'll get to that. It's becoming increasingly hard to do that because there's probably in a 12-team league, there's probably 4 or 5 other people that are like, hey, I want to try that. And then everyone's trying to do it. And then there's really not a lot of equity in taking that strategy. But I'm going to start up now. And it's basically, we've left ourselves room next year for 4 2023 firsts that we've traded in for. And essentially just building around receivers. And, I want to get a quarterback or 2, but I'm actually okay going into next year. If I have 5 or 6 picks in the top 15, I'm actually okay going into it with shy a quarterback. Because I think even if you have extra picks, there's going to be times during this year where it's like, oh, I have an extra pick. It looks like it's going to be a bottom of the 2023 class. I should be able to trade that for a Derek Carr or Kirk Cousins or someone like that. If my team starts to compete before I think they're ready, if I hit on Fournette, Connor, Sony, Penny, that type of stuff, I can probably trade one of those picks and protect myself from trading away the top ones that are looking like they're going to be really high picks. So I think that's how you have to do it. And then you're just pigeonholing yourself next year, right? Like my team's stacked, running back. That's how I like to cluster the picks. So Shane, how would you do it, Shane?
Well, I mean, I don't want it to seem like I'm purposely going to make my roster devoid of running backs just so I can get them in 2023. My roster construction is going to be, I'm paying the cheapest price I can to get running back production after getting absolutely destroyed this year. So it's just going to happen to coincide with, all right, well then I guess I'm probably not going to have a lot of long-term running back value on my roster because I'm not going to pay for it. I'm certainly not going to pay up for Jonathan Taylor or Javonte Williams or Najee Harris. As Clay knows, I tried to get him on the cheap last night.
Yes, you did.
I'm certainly not going to pay up for those players. So you know what? I'll spend a singular draft pick on the running backs that are probably going to be better than those guys anyway. Yeah, that's right. I said they're going to be better than Jonathan Taylor. Wow. Wide receiver, that's another one. Like, I don't purposely look to a rookie draft class as like, this is where I'm going to build my roster. I really don't. Like, I'm generally not looking at positions and going, well, I need this position, so this is where I'm drafting. I'm drafting best player available. It's just going to so happen because my roster is going to be constructed in a way where I don't have expensive running backs, then I'm going to end up drafting a lot of running backs early in the draft. If I have early picks in the first round, I won't draft probably many quarterbacks, but again, that's because I chased quarterbacks last year. And if I'm chasing quarterbacks again next year, that means this year went horribly wrong for me. So hopefully I won't be chasing quarterbacks again. So that's the one good thing. I'll be able to use my capital somewhere else and I could trade down. I'm already thinking about trading down in 2023 to the teams that need a quarterback that are going to need to trade up to get CJ Stroud when I already have a third-year Trevor Lawrence coming off a all-pro second year. You should already be looking at rosters that you're trading with for 2023 picks to try to figure out if it's back end or front end.
Yep.
I think you almost have. That's why I've been so meticulous about just collecting the picks, and I'll worry about where they project to be later. Now I want to try to collect them at the cheapest point I can, but once you have like 5 or 6 of the 12 2023 firsts, you own the draft. You're going to control the draft. You've actually cheapened the value of other people's picks because now you're going to control what the board does. So I'm kind of like, man, give me the pick now, and then I'll be able to have some more information when I sell, a random one in week 6. That's when I'll buy back on Terry McLaurin, or you know what I mean? I'm okay giving a pick up then if I think it's going to be to 110, 111. You just can't tell right now, though. If you're playing in a real casual league, you may be able to get the 23 picks super, super cheap, right? Like you may be able to get them cheaper than what we've talked about. Like, oh, I'm on the clock at the 111 this year. Someone will give me a 23 first. Cool. Because they really want to pick like Jamison Williams because they are an Alabama fan or something. They're not really looking at the value of the player versus the pick versus the market. Then you get into other leagues where it's like nobody will trade their 23 firsts.
Yep.
Everybody thinks it's going to be a top 3 pick. Everyone thinks they're going to know exactly who to take. So you can't get any of the picks. But at the same time, like if you're in one of those casual leagues, you may accumulate every single first next year and gut your roster because you traded T. Higgins, DJ Moore, Devontae Smith. Guess what? Your team may end up being literally the 23 class because the best value you're going to get is making the pick. You know what I mean? They're not going to understand the value of the pick on the back end side. You're going to go, I have the 101 this year. And they're like, well, I'm not going to give you Najee Harris for that. No way. You know what I mean? Like that, you're going to get leagues where it's like they're never going to value these picks how the market is already value them in other leagues. So I think you really have to judge your competition because you don't want to make every pick. I don't want to hold every 23 pick and go, I can't wait to make the pick.
Oh, I don't know. There's a couple leagues I really wouldn't mind making like.
And you know what? Those leagues, I will make sure I hit Shane up on draft day to give me the max haul for that pick because he really needs to get his guy CJ Stroud.
Well, look, if